are often failed, and you know, there is a way we don't exactly always know how to search for that thing and for who we are. And I think these films have that, give us that kind of presence and that kind of wisdom about how to approach ourselves. And the projection here is very beautiful. I see, I don't no longer feel like we aren't looking at pictures. We feel something alive on the screen, like an entity, you know, that glows and streams and changes aspect through every shot. And it was just an incredible voyage, I felt, to see these two programs, and I hope, or this one alone. I'm just very happy to be here and happy you're here with us. That's all I would say as an opening.
Well, thank you, Mark. And I think one of the sort of modes of transport in your films, Nathaniel, is beauty. And I find myself contemplating and wondering about the sort of mystery and power of beauty when I see your films, when I travel through your films, and when they resonate with me afterwards. And I was wondering if this is something where we could begin the conversation, because it seems to me that within the kind of beauty you find and you so generously give us in your films, we find something that's both, I feel like our vision is renewed, and at the same time you teach us to look differently. So we're looking at, in a way, there's a sense of familiarity, and then there's also a sense of wonderment, and at times awe, at times there's something dark and almost frightening. I think in Abraham we see that. And so I was wondering if we could start the conversation with really in the role of beauty and this, in both the ways in which it is so powerful and at the same time I think so fragile in these films. I mean, I find myself wanting to hold on to these images, and at the same time they slip away, and there's something so poignant about that. But at the same time, I've come out of the films transfixed and somehow transformed.
Is that a question to me? Yes. Yes. Well, one thing, I find beauty the most interesting thing a human being can experience. There are many things we can experience, but you can reach the end of them. But beauty has no end. I think it's ultimately the most interesting thing, and the most mysterious, and it's kind of extraordinary. Here we are, a skeletal mammalian species, you know, walking on a planet, and this thing which we call beauty is very nurturing to us, almost the same way the sun is nurturing to us. It's extraordinary that we're a species that responds to beauty.
At the same time, I mean, I guess to be a bit more specific, I mean, I feel like there's also something so quintessentially, so elementally cinematic in the films. And I feel like the kind of beauty that you have, these aren't abstract representations of the beautiful. These are, in fact, these are moving images, and the kinds of movement, the kind of depth you find, the kind of shimmering, trembling passage through time that we have in the films and this is, to me, again, this is the mystery of and power of these films, is that somehow there is a sense of familiarity somehow. And perhaps maybe you could, you know, again, just trying to, because it's difficult to speak about something that's both so ineffable and at the same time it's so profoundly, I think, affirmed by your films. films. I was wondering if you could speak about the ways in which you feel like cinema is particularly attuned to this sort of human need, necessity for beauty.
Well, I can recommend a book. But actually, I have a book called Devotional Cinema, and we're just coming out, it's out of print right now, and we're coming out with a third edition. I did some additional writing. Unfortunately, it got delayed at the printer, and I couldn't bring it with me to share with you. But I'm not just plugging the book, it is a part of an answer to your question, I think. Well, I don't know what to say. Cinema is a mirror, and we're very affected by that mirror. We can come out of a film very freaked out. You know the variety of ways that you can come out of a film. You can come out of a film embarrassed about things, or augmented in certain things. So it's a very powerful mirror. We're in a dark room, and our own being readjusts itself and becomes an aspect of that mirror. So film, therefore, is a great medium for devotional art and for prayerful art. Because it's an expensive medium, it's not often used that way. It's used to make money. It's used and basically in that way because it's expensive. I guess if this were 800 years ago and there was cinema at that point, there would be, that there would be patronage for using cinema, as a devotional form. But extremely powerful, and for a filmmaker, a filmmaker has a great responsibility. You lock people up almost in a dark room, and you have complete power over them, control over them. You're giving them all their sensory input, and it's very easy to misuse that, or to find some way that it can be used in a deeply prayerful way. Just to use that kind of word.
Well, I would comment on something that, in terms of the communal aspect, we had a private screening of some of these films here a few days ago, and Joaquin was here, and Hugo, and several others, and it was extremely interesting that I've seen Saraband, which was shown in the earlier program, many times, but it revealed itself in a completely different way, and there was something I'd intuited before, but it became very palpable, and it was a strange thing to talk to people afterwards, somewhat uncanny, because we all used pretty much the same words, the same references and vocabulary, and we were describing how we were looking at images of landscape or the exterior world, but we experienced it as something completely internal, or inside the body. So, there was the underground cinema, the subterranean cinema. This was like the subcutaneous cinema. It was under the skin, and we were seeing veils of membrane, and all motion and light that moved seemed to be emotion that was moving through the body and affecting the body. And it made me think of these paradoxes with different artists. There's a Joseph Cornell box called Towards the Blue Peninsula. It's named after, it's honoring the an Emily Dickinson poem. And Cornell's boxes are these confined habitats, aviaries. It's a box. And the front of it has a kind of cage mesh. So the bird is imprisoned. And it's fled, it's vanished, and there's only a tiny feather that indicates that it was ever there. And it's gone through a window into what appears to be an endless azure sky. But we know it's not the sky it's still contained within the box. So the escape has been into a deeper interior. There's an image in Sherlock Jr. by Buster Keaton that I love, where he's a detective in love. He's a projectionist. He goes to a safe, like a big bank vault in his house. He puts his ear to it and listens to the tumblers, and he practices his safe cracking skills, and he opens the vault. And you would expect this deep, dark recess of, treasures and things that were to be protected, but instead it is the door to the outside, to the street. And just the notion of that is like, well, was that world within this vault? Is that another vast external interior? So I'm just wondering if, despite I'm rambling like this, if there's a way to address that kind of sense of the internal approaching the interior through going out to the world and filming in this way that you do. It's very solitary, but it's a kind of soliloquy that you present that we all experience in our own way.
Well, one thing is that film is a kind of a membrane. The film, there's a screen, and it has this membrane, it has a surface. And just like if you look down into a reflecting pool, you can see, let's say, the dust on the surface of the water, and then you can see the clouds reflected in the water. And then you can look down through the dust into the reflecting pool and see leaves maybe on the bottom. So there's a case where you have three layers of visual activity, the reflection, the penetration, and the surface. And I think it's a kind of a metaphor or a model for our own sense of consciousness, because to what degree we keep the outside outside and the inside inside actually is problematic, and that it causes a tremendous amount of pain and difficulty. But there's a point where you can actually touch or rest on the membrane between what's inside and outside, and poke through that membrane, push through it, and so that you can actually create an openness between what's inside and outside, and make that a more unified world. And I think that I'm using the cinema the way a masseuse might work on your body. I'm sort of working on your mind. Like I bring you to the surface, I push you through the surface, I show you, I reflect back. And so it's kind of exercising, like delicately, giving you a very delicate psychic massage of bringing the mind to the surface, pushing it through, opening it up. And I think that practice of doing that, can produce a wholeness and a sense of groundedness and, a greater sense of reality and mysterious reality.